Welcome back, Math 7. Today we are going to focus on basically the percent chapter review. Technically, I believe the title is fraction, decimal, and percentage, but in the end, it's a connection among those three. So, whenever we do the review, you know what's happening. The next class for Math 7 will be about the assessment of this chapter. So, please prepare blank pieces of paper. We are going to go through some examples. Very first lesson that we did was how can we properly convert fraction into decimal? Converting fractions into decimals. And when it comes to that, you need to understand that there are two different type of decimal that you're going to see. One is known as terminating decimals, and others are known as repeating decimals. So let's look at one of each. Terminating decimals, which I'm going to put number 1 and number 2 for that. I'm kind of going to compare those. Terminating decimal generally have certain denominators of 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, etc., etc. When it comes to repeating decimal, you generally have a denominators of 9, 99, 999, etc., etc. And what number they repeat for repeating decimal is involved with the top number. So let's do a quick example. What about, this can be good. Let's say you have 7 over 14. I'm already starting with some intermediate to tough example to start because some people may say, Mr. Kim, there is no 14 that will multiply by something that makes 10, 100,000 or 10,000. What should I do? Well, here's the thing. You are not always multiplying to getting into tens and thousands. If you look at 7 over 14, everything can be divided by 7 for top and the bottom. Then what you will have is actually 7 divided by 7 is 1, 14 divided by 7 is 2. But now, can I make this 1 over 2 and turning it to 10, 100, something like that? Yes, you can. You can actually multiply everything by 5. And this is what we call equivalent fraction. Then my numerator will be 5, my denominator will be 10. And if you have this 10, that means it's how many decimal place that you have. I have 1 0, so that means it should be 0 point something. And that something is indicated by the numerator. So 0.5, something like that. On the other hand, when it comes to repeating decimal, conversion can be a little tricky. Like, for instance, I can say 11 as a denominator and top number, let's say you have 7. As you may notice, 11 is a prime number. And if you think about denominator, however, I can multiply both top and the bottom by 9. So then my denominator is 99 because 9 times 11 is 99. 9 times 7 is 63. You can make that happen. Once you have these number of 9, that indicates to you, and this is again equivalent fraction, like the one that you see on the left side. The top numbers are the repeating number after the 0. So 0.63, you should put the line in between. So it becomes 636363. If you doubt about that, you can always double check using your calculator. Like that, 6 divided by 11 give you 0.636363 and repeating. That's what you can do. That was the very first lesson about this chapter. How can we convert fraction easily? Well, let's go with the second part. What do we learn after that? We also learn how to compare. So what I mean by that is imagine and compare fraction with decimal and with percentage. The best way that you can compare anything is convert fraction into decimal or percentage, because that provides us a good idea how much is the smallest value and how much is the biggest value. We can make it into ascending order or descending order. That means smallest to largest or largest to smallest. Let's give it a shot with a simple example. I'm gonna make up something like As you may notice, I created random example. The best way that you can compare is either choose decimal or percentage, but percentage is always a good way to go for grade 7. I have one of the example as 15%, so just leave it. But when it comes to decimal, 0.72, when you convert decimal to percentage, you always have to do this operation, which is multiply by 100%. You can use calculator, or if you don't use calculator, that's a decimal place that moving once and twice to the right side if you multiply by 100, so you can conclude that that's 72%. So we have 2 that is already converted. Next one, fraction. The reason that fraction is tough to compare is because denominators are not equal. That's why whenever that happens, it is good idea to convert it into decimal. If it's multiple choice, you can try the calculator, but let's do written response situation. Now, 17 over 33. Is there any way that we can make it into other type of equivalent fraction and somehow change into terminating or repeating decimal? In this case, yes, we can by multiply everything by 3. Then you will have 51 over 99. And that, ladies and gentlemen, means it is repeating decimal 0.5151 and repeating. And obviously, we are trying to get to a percentage by multiply by 100. Then you will actually getting into 51.5151 ... But in repeating decimal, it is a good idea to round it up. Everything was whole number in this example, so it rounded up to be 52%. That's how you can do. And this step is quite important for repeating decimal. Now, next one, 3 over 5. Is there any any fraction that you can transform into repeating or terminating decimal? Yes, you can. Simply multiply by 2. Then it's 6 over 10, which give you 0.6. And if you multiply by this, by 100, then you will get 60%, not 6%. Remember, it's a 2 bunny hop to the right. So it's 6 and then 0. Now, if I use ascending order, then here's what happened. 15% was the smallest. Then followed by, we have the next one, 52%, and in this case, you have to use original number. 17 over 33 was next. Followed by, the next one was 3 over 5. Next one was 0.72. That's how you do. And this comparing part is what we learned last time. Now next, number 3. We also learn that how can percentage represent the whole set of data. And there are two things that we did. But the best way that you can think of is always, when it comes to percentage, you start with the fraction. And when you try to make it into fraction first, you always need to understand that on top numerator, that is where the parts belong. And at the denominator, you always put the total number of set. And sometimes this is indicated as blank out of blank situation. Then let's say this is A and this is B. In English order, if you have something out of something, that means the first one represents the parts out of, then followed by is a total. So you have to make it like that. For example, if you have 120 gram out of 150 grams, something like that. And I just create a question on spot. That means this 120 is your part and your denominator is the total 150. And you can do your calculation based on that. First of all, both of them can be divided by 10 because they have extra zeros. So that will be simplified to 12 over 15. Can we simplify this further? Yes, we can. We can divide top number and bottom number by 3. Then it becomes 4 over 5. Can we make this into another fraction form that can be transformed into a decimal? Yes, we can. Multiply by 2. Then it's 8 over 10, which is 0.8. And if you multiply by 100% for that, you will get 80%. That's your work. So basically now you need to understand that percentage is representation of this scenario into fraction first. So you gotta practice. If you know the percentage, this is also possible. For instance, you may need to find out 75% of 150 grams. This is a little bit of a reverse situation. You know the portion, this is a total. We're trying to find how much is my part out of this whole thing. Then you need to understand the fact that this 75% can be converting into decimal or fraction. If it's decimal, then you just divide it by 100, 0.75. If it's fraction, and sometimes you have something I like to call common fraction that make it into easy percentage, 75 is 3/4. So that means it's 3 over 4. It doesn't matter which one that you use, but if you use decimal or fraction situation, decimal, you gotta do 0.75 multiplied by 150 grams. That will give me my parts. If you do fraction, 3 over 4 multiplied by 150 grams, that will give me my parts. I'm going to do the fraction part to show you because that involves some mental math in here. Whenever you see something, denominator and whole number, or you can put this into a fraction again, like 3 over 4 multiplied by 150 over 1. Whatever diagonally placed multiplication, we call it cross multiplication and simplification. You can actually simplify. Like in this case, 4 and 150, those are even number. So I can divide both of them by 2. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. 150 divided by 2 is 75. So if I do 75 times by 3 is 125 divided by 2 gram, which is, if you can use your, and this is a point where I encourage not to use calculator, but if you really need to use, 225 divided by 2. They give you 112.5 gram. If you are using decimal place, like let's say it's multiple choice or numerical response, then you just need to do 0.75 multiplied by 150. That gives me 112.5, same answer as mine. And that's how you do it. Another situation, this one I gotta create some kind of scenario. Let's say if I'm using, or if I have any type of table of data, and let's say we have class A, class B, and we have boy population, girl population, something like that. I'm just really creating random stuff. Let's say we're comparing class A and B's girl population. Sometimes you have a data. We don't have any of a clue in terms of fraction. Then your first job is analyzing the situation. We know that girl population is basically a center of this topic of that question. So 28 and 30. These two are basically your parts. Now, do we know the whole population for class A and B? No, we don't. So the funny thing is we need to find total for class A, total for class B, which is class A should be boy and girl, 15 plus 28, and the next one is 17 plus 30. And that's the pre-step, 15 plus 28, that is 43. 17 plus 30 is basically 47. It is important to figure out these total, because then now you can apply for your fraction situation. Class A, class B, that's basically 28 over 43 and 30 over 47. And as you may know, 43 and 47, we call it prime number. There's nothing that we can simplify or multiply to get our good decimal. Then this is where calculator comes in, because you can just do, instead of 28 over 43, 28 divided by 43. That gives me 0.651. I round it up. 30 over 47, 0.638. Which means I can multiply by 100%. And this part you don't need a calculator because it's 2 bunny hop to the right. 65.1%, 63.8%. You know that when it comes to percentage, class A has more girl proportion or girl population percentage than A. So this, I guess, population distribution. But in any case, that's how you compare. And that is my review, ladies and gentlemen.